What advice would you give to a young kid that wants to do something similar to what you've done with their career as far as starting Turning Point USA and just impacting people?
So I started Turning Point USA when I was 18. I never went to college and ended up being a great decision for me. I took a gap year. Not everyone in this country needs to go to college. We have way too many people going to college in our country. Strive to be a better person every single day because your character is a reflection of your soul. Learn something new every single day. It doesn't matter where you go to college. It's just a piece of paper, honestly. What matters is who you are as a person. If you want to succeed, you also must be willing to keep pushing on and enduring when things get really, really tough. Take the relationships with people that are older than you very seriously and memorialize those conversations forever. So those smartphones, I think, are destroying our country, but one thing they're good for is they're really good at recording. They're good at recording voice memos or conversations. Next time you sit down with a grandparent or a business person, record those conversations. You're going to want them. When you encounter difficulty, train yourself to blame yourself. Train yourself to say, it's my fault. What did I do wrong? That's hard. Trust me. It's really easy to blame others. It might be somebody else's fault, but find something you could have done differently. And if you get in the practice of doing that, you'll be a stronger person. The final thing is this: immerse yourself in eternal knowledge. There's two types of knowledge: practical knowledge and eternal knowledge. Practical knowledge is who's the governor. Eternal knowledge, things that never change. We also call it wisdom. The more wise you are, the more cheerful and happy you will be. You live in a wonderful country. We got problems, we got ridiculous leaders, we got all that stuff. Man, what a gift we've been given. Don't get into the whole complaining that everything around me is terrible and awful. We talked about many of that. But believe that your actions matter, apply yourself accordingly, work harder every single day. And after a decade of that, I think you'll be in a pretty good place. Critical race theory. What is critical race theory? Well, critical race theory is an outgrowth of critical theory. It's a way of viewing the world. Basically, many of you know what economic Marxism is. Okay, in the 1960s, Herbert Marcuse from the Frankfurt School in Germany came to America, and he looked around and he said, boy, our Marxist movement is not doing too well. It's not doing great because the American middle class is actually successfully integrating into a private property-based market system, and Marxism is kind of fizzling out. So then he conjectured, what if we come up with a new type of Marxism, not economic Marxism, but race Marxism? He said the real struggle is not rich versus poor, it's not the bourgeoisie versus the proletariat, it's white versus people of color. Now it is about systemic oppression, white privilege, and doing whatever is necessary to try to fix those problems, including Ibram X. Kendi, who says that we need discrimination today to fix the discrimination of yesterday, and I'll prove exactly what he means by that. So with critical race theory, it's not just bad ideology, it's not just, here's the best way I can describe CRT to you, with all that philosophical stuff aside. It's calling everything you don't like racist until you control it. That's what CRT is. Just keep calling it racist until you control it. The banking system is racist. The colleges are racist until all of a sudden you're in control of it, and it really is a major power grab. Okay, so if you asked a leftist about race in America, they would say the worst thing you could possibly be is a straight white male, right? They'd say that it's the problem with the entire society, the structure, the bones of society comes down to the issues of straight white men. A liberal would say, look, there's systemic racism, but maybe we make some moderate improvements around the edges, and we don't do anything too dramatic, but they would admit with the premise that America is systemically racist. A conservative would say, hold on a second. Discrimination is wrong. I couldn't care less about the color of your skin. It means nothing to me. I care about your character. I care about your actions. I care about your values, and I want to live in a country where people are not talking about race. In fact, I'm very, very worried we're heading into a country where we are retribalizing ourselves, and we should not put up with this kind of discrimination. White privilege is a racist myth that is rooted in bigotry, trying to classify people based on their skin color. If you are a racist, you have something to apologize for. If you're a white person who is not a racist, you have nothing to apologize for. And anyone who makes you apologize just based on the color of their skin, of your skin, they're the racist and you're not. It's that simple. And so, this idea of our systems are racist also does not stand up against any sort of cross-examination of different ethnic groups in our country. White people, on average, if you were to classify it, and again, I don't like the over-racialization of our country, but if that's where the left wants to lead this, the facts don't even support their entire charge against our country is that Asian Americans and Indian Americans are far wealthier on average in our country than white Americans. This idea that every single white person in the country is living a life of luxury and convenience is totally untrue. And according to not just the Hoover Institution, but US Census data and government labor data, this is the greatest statistic to dispel it, which is that a black child raised by a mother and father is more likely to succeed by every independent metric than a white child who is raised by a single mother. Now, I'm not bashing single mothers. I think that they're modern-day heroes. The point is that there's two-parent privilege in our country, not white privilege in our country. And if we're serious about rebuilding the black family, which we should be putting fathers back in the home, but be very careful to try to connect disparities necessarily with discrimination. And so there's other parts of privilege as well in our country that are non-racial privilege. For example, anyone here the firstborn child? I am. You know that you have an exponentially higher likelihood of succeeding than the second child or the third child or the youngest child? You ever heard of firstborn privilege? Probably not. How about anyone here an only child? You have way higher likelihood of succeeding. Every independent study shows this. Now, we can laugh and chuckle, of course. The point is that there are different inputs at times for why certain disparities are created. And blaming all of it on deep-seated, harbored racial resentment is not just incorrect, it's really corrosive for all of us. Instead of just looking at skin color, look at other circumstantial factors such as education, such as two-parent households. And the argument that the activists will make, and I'm sure someone here will make the argument, is that racism created those systems, right? That it was racist. And I can actually agree with part of that. Just be very specific of what systems those are. And if we're serious about improving the livelihood of our fellow countrymen, maybe we should be less focused on government welfare and more focused on work and literacy education and bringing fathers back into the home.
To address your previous assertion that race means nothing, critical race theory is not being taught in schools. It is a academic theory that's pretty much delegated only to higher academia. They are not teaching it in schools. Your explanation of it was an oversimplification. You address the real history behind it, unlike most people. And why, if race means nothing, does it affect our history? Say 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. Why is there such evil history with something that supposedly means nothing?
Okay, so first of all, you're wrong. It is being taught in elementary schools. I'll give you an example. Not only is it being taught, it's being enforced. Actually, in the National Education Association's training manual, which is the largest teacher union in the country, they had a seminar on how to teach critical race theory to kids. That sounds like it's in our schools, doesn't it?
What that is it's literally just common sense. It's saying that this is real history. This is what has happened in the past.
Right. So
and that matters.
Okay, got it. So, for example, would you say that black-only dormitories is wrong?
It certainly creates a sense of community. I don't see any problem with that. We have sororities. We have male-only dorms.
But let me ask you a question. Are there differences between races?
No, not biologically.
Then why would we have different dormitories for races?
Culture.
Segregation is what you're arguing for, my friend.
No, sir. No, sir.
How is it not segregation to have blacks in their own dorm?
You've just pigeonholed me, essentially.
You said it was a force of community, and then not for critical race
That's
theory.
an option. We have choice.
Oh, so you could choose to segregate.
That's a pigeonhole.
What do you think of white-only dormitories?
What?
Would you support white-only dormitories?
Everybody has a choice.
So I think white-only and black-only anything is evil and wrong. That's why I hate critical theory and critical race theory, because when it's put in practice, you start to discriminate people based on race. So we're now south of the Mason-Dixon line in North Carolina. We did a lot of work to get rid of segregation in this country. Why are you trying to bring it back?
What work?
The Civil Rights Act of 1964.
In this state?
Yeah, actually in this state. Are there black-only bathrooms out there I'm unaware of, or white-only bathrooms?
Nah.
Right. A lot of work was done in this state.
You said socialism is non-American, so what do you think is pro-American?
Well, let's define what socialism is, right? Socialism is the government confiscation of private property. It tends to be the rule of the few, not the many, even though they profess to say it's the rule of the many. But the American, let's just say, economic tradition is private property rights, markets with proper restraint, entrepreneurship, the ability to flourish, trade, create new products. Socialism disincentivizes almost all those things. Socialism is built largely on envy and greed. And hilariously, the people that push for socialism, the rank and file, they don't realize that socialism actually just creates an oligarchy. It doesn't actually create a strong middle class, what they allege, to want.
So do you believe in taxes?
Ideally 10% across the board. Yeah.
Okay, so you believe in the confiscation of people's private property?
At some point it depends on if it's private property income or if it's necessary to fund government services.
But that's still a confiscation with a gun through police if you don't.
I fully acknowledge a moderate form of something I hate in order to fund a government, police, firefighters, EMT is necessary.
But that's still government confiscating
of course
private property,
yes.
which you said was socialism.
Yes, but have you ever called the cops?
No, I don't believe.
Okay,
I don't like cops. They don't like me.
Okay, you ever gone to the hospital?
No.
Okay, well, one day when you go to a hospital or you use the social service you paid for.
I'm saying you define socialism as a confiscation of private property, and you're saying that you believe in taxes, which is a confiscation of private wages.
Let me go for the unreasonable confiscation of private property, the elimination of private property altogether. You see, this is very sloppy intellectual thinking, that just because we want a police force, a border patrol, and we want clean streets, all of a sudden we become a socialist.
But there's still socialism.
Not every form of government is socialism. Would you acknowledge that?
No, I don't.
Okay, then
when does socialism begin and when does it end? And I'm saying you're saying that some level of socialism.
It's not like an entrance into Narnia.
If you're
it's like
saying
I'm all of a sudden
socialism is
here.
Anti-American, I'm saying
it's a
socialism
spectrum.
is a part of America.
Okay, so you want to know when socialism begins and when it ends?
Yeah.
When you leave the free state of Florida and you enter the unfree state of New York.
What's the tax rate in Florida then?
0.
No,
the income tax in Florida is 0.
But you still have to pay federal taxes. So if you have to pay taxes at all, it sounds like Florida's a socialist state.
So are you trying to say America's currently socialist?
Yes. That's
okay,
what I'm
I would agree. We're going more in that direction. So.
Okay, wait, you just said that America is socialist, but you said Florida's not socialist. So Florida's part of America. That doesn't make sense.
Oh, but the federal project right now is more socialist than it is free market. Yeah. So to be even more clear, the closer you get towards the government owning a majority of your labor and your goods, the further and further closer you get to socialism. California is that.
Yeah.
Now, I would love for the federal government to get rid of FICA tax, to get rid of, the excess income tax. I've been clear. I think 10% across the board, fine. We need a military. You might not agree. We need a police force. We need a border patrol. We need basic social services that are a safety net, not a hammock. But I do not believe in this over-the-top type taxation. If you want to talk about other types of taxation that everyone here is paying, it's inflation. Third-wave feminism is a direct assault on the masculine archetype. It's a direct assault on the proper role of men in a society. It also fails to recognize the good choices and the good decisions women have made over the last 50 years to succeed in America. American women are doing a lot better than what people would actually have you recognize. Women are far less likely to go to prison. They're far less likely to commit crimes. Now, why is this? It's because women make really good choices. They just do. Men tend to not. Sorry, okay, but you don't need feminism, you don't need some government policy, you don't need some victimhood mentality. Men, in our traditional Darwinian evolution, are far more likely to try to push ourselves to higher levels of career to provide for yourself and your family than women are. Women are far more likely in their mid-20s, because biologically there's things going off in their head that are saying reproduce, reproduce, reproduce. They want to nurture. They want to become mothers. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you have women in high rates voluntarily leave the workforce between the ages of 25 and 35, and men use that high adrenaline push and the highest level of their intellectual and physical capacity to go after career excellence, that's where you start to see the corporate discrepancy happen. We have a male problem in this country right now, believe it or not. We have a serious male problem. And this whole idea of the beta male is like one of the most disastrous, one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen in my life. It's okay to embrace the masculine archetype. That doesn't mean you have to be a jerk. That doesn't mean you're allowed to hit women. It means that you have to embrace what it means to be a man, that you hold doors open for women, that you treat other people well, that you're going to be called upon at some time in your life to make a consequential decision where you might have to take some arrows. And you know what? That's part of our Darwinian evolution. And the failure to recognize that is completely and totally anti-science. There is nothing masculine about a father leaving a woman after he has a child with her. That is cowardly. That is not a masculine. A man takes responsibility for their actions. That's the masculine archetype. And that's what you've seen in the African American community. You've seen the skyrocketing single motherhood rates. The left will attribute that to racism. American women should run as far away from feminism as they possibly can. They don't need a manufactured AstroTurf political movement to be successful. The individual is the most important thing, and the statistics show that we have successful women in every field, in every capacity. We should celebrate the success of women, but we also should say, hey, if we want to survive as a culture, we need strong men, and there's nothing wrong with saying that.